200. It is Saturday, April 17th, 2021, and this is John.
I'm just here to click the mouse.
He's my technical support staff from home. So I hope everyone's doing well. I know it's crazy busy for everyone right now. This is our last weekly video of the semester, and you know what? Congrats to all of you for hanging in there, for being in school, for making yourselves better. If your semester didn't go the way you hoped it would, don't worry. You know what? I think there's going to be a little bit of diplomatic immunity for students that struggled during the pandemic. If you're doing well, that's awesome too. And we're all going to get through this. And next fall, I think we're going to be close to back to normal. If you are graduating, congrats. Come by and see us next fall. If you're still a student or already graduated, come by and just say hi, and we'd love to see you in person. If you need letters of recommendation for scholarships, for internships, for jobs, you can always reach out to your GERO family. And you know, we always have that saying, once you take a GERO class, you remember the GERO family. So I know during the pandemic time, it's hard to get to know your professors, but you guys have these discussions every week, and we see who you are. And because of these writing assignments, we kind of get to know who you are. So we're happy to write letters if you need them. So that's just the housekeeping stuff. Okay, midterm. The midterm is open tomorrow, Sunday. What would that be? April 18th? And it's open. We opened it early because some people, you know, they cut our final week of classes to 4 days. Friday's a wellness day. That means you have to do 5 days of work in 4 days. So we wanted to give people a chance to take the exam early if they wanted to. You have that flexibility. It is going to be due at the end of the day on Thursday, April 29th. Once you enter the exam, you have either 2 hours, or if you have DSP accommodations, you have whatever time, you know, you told us in your letter. If you haven't sent me your DSP letter, you can send me your letter right up until the time you enter the exam, and I am totally fine. I want you to get your accommodations. Final paper is due May 5th. Typically, the final paper, we give sample questions in our assignment directions, and it's typically 50% questions and answers and 50% analysis. You need to have 10 outside references. That means not from the class. But you can use CNN, you can use the Wall Street Journal, you can use WebMD, you can use the Alzheimer organization, as long as it's not a site that we've already used in the class. So people tend to do very well on this assignment. We really appreciate your family members and your friends sharing their lives with us, and so thank them in advance. And I have to tell you, every year, it's my favorite assignment. I love reading the papers. I love learning about all of you and your families, and it is really an awesome thing for us.
Here's the list of questions right there. Don't forget, get it in on time, guys. Just get it out of the way. And here's the rubric, just in case Julie kind of went through it, and so just kind of look over the rubric. And like I say this every time, guys, get out your video. All right, get out your camera and videotape your grandparents if you're lucky enough to do that. Videotape your parents if you're lucky enough to do that, because it's something that will be part of your family culture forever.
Okay, so anyway, thanks in advance for that. So let's start this week, which is the last week.
Wow, it's amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed the ride, because this is it's an amazing bit of work that we've done. I don't know why I put that there, but
okay. We'll fix it.
All right, here we go.
So we're doing estate planning and long-term care, and I wanted to give you two different perspectives on estate planning. So I put in two really short articles. One is from the American Bar Association, so it's the lawyer's point of view. One is from AARP, so it's kind of, hey, this is to help out retired people point of view, so it's a little less technical. So let's go through some of the vocabulary. If you don't have a will and you die, it's called dying intestate. What that means is that the state will have a probate code that says automatically who gets your assets. So if you typically it'll be your spouse, your children. If you don't have a spouse and you don't have children, and then it'll be up to the state to say, well, then do your parents get the money? Do your aunts and uncles get the money? Do your cousins get the money? So the state decides who gets your money, and that can be a little messy and a little difficult and a little complicated. So it is really a gift to our loved ones when we go through the process of estate planning and nailing things down. So our dog's in the other room.
Here, I'm just going to pause for a sec. Matt, can you take her outside? That'd be awesome, okay?
Do we have to start over?
No, we're not starting over.
Okay.
This is all part of the Zoom University. Okay, go ahead.
We have
Matt's my oldest son. He's a Trojan, and he graduated from OC.
we have a 12-year-old dog who is a rescue. We got her when she was 7, and she wants what she wants when she wants it. And right now she wants the ball.
Yeah, okay.
So someone needs to provide her with the ball and entertainment. Okay, so if you have a will, then you can decide within certain parameters who gets your property. And quite often, if you have little kids, you leave everything to your spouse. If you're not married and you don't have a partner, you might leave it to your sister, brother, favorite aunt and uncle, your parents, whatever. So you can direct to a certain extent who gets your property if you have a will. But some things pass outside the will. So if I have a 401k account, I hopefully have named a beneficiary to my 401k account. If I have an IRA, a Roth IRA, if I have a checking account, a savings account, all these banking accounts, hopefully you've named a beneficiary on those accounts. So those things pass outside of your will. The second you die, then that beneficiary goes into effect, and you just have to present a death certificate to get that asset to be retitled.
So ask your parents and grandparents during the interview, are you listed as a beneficiary?
Yeah, that's an awkward conversation.
So what?
So anyway, beneficiary designations, you also need them for life insurance. So when you graduate and you get a job, you're probably going to have employer-provided life insurance. You need to remember to update that beneficiary form. I see cases, and I've personally been involved in some really sketchy behavior where the employee wants to leave the life insurance policy proceeds to someone other than the spouse. It gets a little complicated. Or you see someone who's been divorced for 20 years and forgot to update their beneficiary designation, and so the money goes to the ex-spouse that they weren't on good terms with. That can be really kind of sad when that happens. So check your accounts and check them every couple of years to make sure that you have the right beneficiaries on file.
All right. Am I in the right spot here?
Yeah, go down a little bit. I can't tell. You're going too fast. Okay, so you could have a will and a trust with what we call a pour over will is the most common thing. So when you create a trust, you can retitle your major assets. Like our house is owned in the name of our trust. So that means that if we die, then it's very painless for our house to pass to our children. They don't have to go through probate. There's no court proceeding. It's just boom, boom, boom. We record a deed transfer, and it's pretty easy. You can use a will to designate a guardian for your minor children. So you may not have a lot of assets. Maybe you have a bank account. Maybe you have a car, maybe you just don't have that many assets, and you think, well, why would I bother having a will? If you have minor children, you can designate a guardian. And being a lawyer, I'm going to tell you, designate your primary, your first choice, designate your second choice, and maybe designate your third choice, because depending on how old your kids are and what the situation is, choice number 1 might not be able to serve, and they might step aside and let choice number 2 do it. So it gives your wishes some bearing. So that's kind of important. You also designate the executor, and that is the person who's going to manage your estate. That's your personal representative. That's the person who's going to pay whatever bills are left over. That's the person who's going to file an estate tax return if necessary. That's the person that's going to transfer the assets to the beneficiary. Your executor needs to be someone who can handle doing paperwork, someone who you trust, someone who's relatively good with money. I certainly have relatives I wouldn't trust with to be executor of my estate, but right now John is, and then if something happens to him, I don't remember if his brother's next because he's really good with this kind of stuff, or my kids in order of their age. So, and you just want to make sure that you tell your executor that you've selected them. If you have a will, and maybe you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't really like your family, you can give your money to a charity. You can give it to USC. You can give it to the SPCA. You can designate gifts when you pass to nonprofit organizations, to the high school you went to, whatever. Or you can give your money to someone who is outside of your family. So maybe you have a lifelong friend, or you have someone who's really been a partner to you, but you haven't been married. this is a way to recognize them when you pass. But reminder again that the will does not transfer non-probate property. So jointly held accounts, real estate, if it's held joint tenancy with a right of survivorship, that means that if you hold title in your real estate that way, the second one person dies, the title automatically is transferred over to the surviving person.
If you're a widow, SC is going to come knocking on your door.
Because we like you. We like your money. Okay, so scroll down. Okay, how do you execute or sign a will? You want to make sure that that will is reliable and trustworthy. So it's typically going to be signed in front of witnesses, and it may be notarized. And typically, we're looking for at least one witness that's not inheriting under the estate. So when we updated our will and our durable power of attorney for healthcare and for financial purposes, we had our neighbors down the street who've known us for 20 some years, and they were very kind and came down and signed a gazillion documents because we did it for us, we did it for our kids, and so we had, I think, 8 sets of documents to sign. It was lots of fun. So like I said, you might have jointly owned property. So you might have a bank account like John and I have. Actually, we moved our bank account into our trust recently, but we have a second bank account that both of our names are on it. With our kids, because they opened their bank accounts when they were younger, one of us is on their bank account. So if something happened to one of our kids, we would have access to the bank account after they died. So if you don't intend to leave your bank account to that person, don't put their name on the account. Make them someone who's a co-signer who can write checks, but that they don't inherit the account. Okay, let's talk about trusts. You can hold property in a trust. This is probably a pretty reasonable thing to do in California. And depending on how complicated and how many assets you have, we found a relatively inexpensive attorney to do it for John's brother, who inherited his mother's house. So we wanted to put that house into a trust. It was in a trust before. It made it very easy to transfer it to him. And so we got him set up with a will, a trust, a durable power of attorney for healthcare. And I think it cost $900. It wasn't bad all in. The reason that isn't, you're thinking, wow, $900, that's way too much money. However, you don't have to pay for a lawyer to go through probate. So you're saving money, you're paying money up front and you're saving money on the back end because you don't have to pay court fees and attorney time to deal with the courts and have the delay of the courts. Now, it's not the same in every state. My mom lived in Louisiana and she passed away, and the Louisiana probate procedures are very, very easy. So she didn't have a trust. It was less common in her area to have a trust because probate was so simple. You open probate, you give a list of assets, you close it. It was literally weeks instead of months, and it didn't cost that much money.
So there's these 2 different mechanisms for transferring assets that we're going over here. So
Yeah,
trust and wills. And the house is a big one,
Yeah.
and that's why it's in the trust. And again, you just don't want it to be idle in the courts and be expensive. It just becomes this automatic function. Just boom, the second you pass, it's in.
Yeah. And so if you have a trust and you title your house in the name of the trust, then when you die, you just have to transfer the title of the house, or you can sell the house while it's in the trust and then disperse the assets, or you could transfer, like our trust has our kids as the beneficiaries, then it could just be transferred into them, jointly holding that asset.
And for your money you've set aside in retirement accounts, then you might want to put that in the will.
Yeah.
So that's so you just kind of have these 2 different mechanisms.
So the person who sets up the trust, the person who owns the assets, is called the grantor or settler. You can create 2 kinds of trusts. Most people do a revocable trust. That's what we have. That means that if for some reason we decide down the road that we don't want to leave our property to our kids, I can't imagine that happening. But if that did happen, we could revoke that trust and start over again. You can also create an irrevocable trust, which means you can't change your mind later on. So that's a little bit less commonly used. We're going to talk about annuities. Yes, annuities and retirement benefits. So let's say you're about to graduate, you have this great job lined up, and you start work and they want to sign you up for their 401k plan. Maybe they have a pension plan. So you're going to designate beneficiaries if something happens to you. So pension plans are kind of fun. They're less commonly offered because they offer lifetime benefits. So I have a pension from a job that I held when I was in-house, an in-house attorney at a company. I decided to start drawing my benefits early. So when I think when I turned, was it 55? I was eligible. And the comedy of this, the benefits were so awesome. The comedy of it is that the difference between me getting the payments during my lifetime and them stopping versus me getting the payments in my lifetime, and then if I die, John gets them for his lifetime, it was like $15 a month. So I said, oh, heck yeah. John and his family, they tend to live in their 90s, well into their 90s. So I'm like, someone's going to get that money for like 35 years, and that is awesome. So
She's going to live that long too.
I hope so. I tend to think the worst, So anyway, but I just wanted to make sure that that it gave me some comfort to know that John would get the spousal benefit if things don't work out for me. So anyway.
But there's no benefit to not having a spouse.
Sorry, this is turning very dark at the end of the semester. So anyway, sometimes, and I had this happen in a case where the employee wanted to leave his retirement, his pension, wanted to name his beneficiary his mistress instead of his wife. And we said, oh, no. Well, you can do that if your wife will sign off on it. So you know what? If you're into polyamory, that's all good, as long as everyone knows and everyone signs off. So most states will have laws that require a spouse to sign off if you're leaving those benefits to a non-spousal beneficiary. Okay. Life insurance, make sure you designate your beneficiary. Make sure typically we have a primary beneficiary and then we have a contingent beneficiary. So John's my primary beneficiary, then my contingent beneficiary, if John should pass before me, my two boys getting 50%, 50%. Okay. Now, where am I?
Which is another great thing about, some corporations. You look into the life insurance policies that they offer as part of your package of benefits.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm done with the ABA. Let's go to the AARP article, which is pretty short. Okay. And there we go. Thank you. All righty. So what the AARP approach was, and I'll tell you, a lot of lawyers are very uncomfortable with people using non-lawyers to draft their wills and estates. But the alternative is you don't have a will. You don't have a durable power of attorney. You don't have a durable power of attorney for healthcare. So AARP is providing options, kind of do-it-yourself software. A lot of this stuff is online. A lot of it's free. And so if your choice is having a will that's done on the internet versus not having a will at all, then I personally think it's a good idea to give people these options. And sometimes it's hard to find an estate planning attorney that you trust. So there's a bunch of different options that you can use just to draw up a quick, simple will. And like I said, if you're 25 or 30 and you're starting your career and you've just recently gotten married and had a baby, this might be fine for you just to designate a guardian and just to get things worked out. Make sure that you can use the software to create an advanced directive, durable power of attorney for healthcare and durable power of attorney for financial. And be thoughtful about who you pick as an executor. So make sure that person is someone that's trustworthy. And make sure that they don't mind doing paperwork and they're kind of detail oriented, which is awesome. This can be, they talk about the choices you make when you designate your beneficiaries and how emotional it is. And if your beneficiaries don't feel that you treated everybody fairly, if you have multiple kids, think about just giving everybody the same thing. But, it's your choice. It's your property. It's your money. Figure out what you want and where you want your money to go. So that's pretty much all I need from AARP.
All right, cool.
There are some little stories that kind of give you some human examples of how different people made decisions.
Right. And different parts of the country, different cultures, so the whole cultural differences that we see in healthcare, et cetera, it permeates through this as well. So cool.
Okay. So let's go to
get to open your quiz and take it.
Let's go to the long-term care discussion.
All right.
So I wanted you guys to have a little bit of a flavor of long-term care, what it means, what it's about, because a lot of people are going to need long-term care the last few years that they're alive. So we have this short article from the National Institute on Aging right there. that explains, what is long-term care? Why would you need long-term care? What does it look like? So you can have long-term care at home, so home or community-based services, or you can have facility-based long-term care like assisted living or a nursing home. And I'm sure there are possibilities, board and care facilities, things like that.
Congregate homes.
Congregate
It's
homes,
all
exactly,
kinds of different things.
exactly. And depending on what state you live in, it may be called one thing or another. In California, bizarrely, the statute calls assisted living residential care facilities for the elderly, RCFE. I don't know where they came up with
And
that.
hopefully you'll just have a multi-generational home.
Yes,
That would be
yes.
the most ideal thing. Build a separate wing. The family collective, is so much more powerful than going out independently.
Living
as long
with
as you
mom
can
and
handle
dad.
each other.
Yeah, no
You
one's
just
got.
you just got to set rules, and
Rules on your parents?
No,
That's
just
awkward.
no, you know what I mean.
Awkward.
You just want to have, everybody has their own independence.
That's true. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so,
Respect. Everyone is respectful of each other.
There's a word called boundaries. You just,
I try to respect my adult children.
That's right.
Okay. So why would you need long-term care? Because you need help with activities of daily living, ADLs. And you'll see that term a lot when we're talking about elder care. So what is it? It's bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, eating, moving around, getting up and out of chairs, getting up and out of bed. So if you can have help with those activities, you can maybe live in an assisted living facility before you have to go to a nursing home. Sometimes it's temporary. Sometimes you've had an elderly person who's had a fall, or they've had an illness, or they've had surgery, and they require more help than their families can provide at home. So they might have to go to a facility or get home health care to come into the home and support them while they're recovering. Sometimes it's more towards the end of life. We don't expect the person to get better. They don't have family to support them. They don't have people that can support them at home. And so in those situations, they may be going to a facility like a nursing home. And so they're just going to be there until they pass away. Typically, the patients are, as you might expect, older. Average age is probably late 70s, early 80s. Female, because women live longer. They're single or widowed because they don't have immediate family to help them out. And they tend to have poor health, and that's why they've ended up in a facility and they're not able to take care of those activities of daily living on their own. John's mom, I love to use her as an example. She lived to be 95. She fell about a year or two before she passed away. And then she needed a lot of help in that last 2 years. But up until she was 93, she was incredibly vital. She lived with
lived with my brother.
With his brother.
So it was kind of like that multi-generational home.
Yeah.
God bless him. He freed me up from having to worry about things.
And they were buddies, and they would go out to dinner and go to the movies, and it was really good for both of them.
And it was good for him in the end because then, as Julie was talking about, in terms of trust, he got the home.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need a house, and my older brother didn't need a house, but the brother that was living with mom,
he needed a house.
He needed a house.
He got the house. So, and then when she fell, John's other brother was retired. She moved in with him, and then we would all kind of share the care. But he really took the lion's share of the care.
He was the only one that was retired.
Yeah.
Me and the middle brother, we were working. So.
Yeah, and so, but anyway, so many people are going to be independent for most of their lives and need help at the very end. So what does in-home care look like? Quite often it's unpaid. Go down, maybe?
Okay.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. She just goes through the list here.
What does in-home care look like? Quite often it's unpaid family caregivers, which is wonderful if you have access to that. Yeah, if you don't have access to that, then you're probably going to look at paid caregivers. So you might have paid home health nurses or nurses' aides coming to your house. Quite often that's covered by Medicare or by your private insurance if you're not old enough to get Medicare, or it could be covered by Medicaid if you're eligible for that. Then you have something called home care aides. So these aren't necessarily nurses, probably not covered by insurance. My stepdad has had he has had a lot of orthopedic problems. So he's had a spinal fusion, hips replaced, knees replaced. He has trouble getting around. Lots of mobility issues. So because of his back being fused, he has to have someone who comes in the morning and they help with his laundry and make his food and help him get dressed in the morning. And then they come at night and help. Basically needs help getting his shoes on and off. and socks on enough. And so he pays, privately per hour for someone to come twice a day. And that allows him to live in his home and be independent. And he's completely mentally intact, and he's able to do a lot of stuff. And, so it works out for him. You might need help with transportation. And a lot of local communities have senior transportation. So you might see little vans on the street that come, and you can call and get picked up. Down in our neighborhood, I think there's a special deal with Uber or Lyft for seniors to use that's subsidized by the city. So there's a lot of state and local agencies that will support senior transportation.
And there's Meals on Wheels that support, if you need food.
Yeah. And then there's technology like the Life Alert, where if you fall, you have a little thing on, and you can push the button, and it alerts someone that then calls your caregiver to come check on you, or calls 911 if you're really injured. So those are good things. And I think technology is a really growth area where we are going to be able to monitor. Let's say you live an hour away from grandma and grandpa, or mom and dad. You can use technology to figure out, have they opened the refrigerator door? Have they gone to the bathroom? Have they left their bed? Are they moving around? I mean, I've got my Fitbit. It tells everything that I do all day long. Why couldn't I, have something like that for my elderly relatives, so that I can kind of, observe them from afar and know that they're okay? So how does it get paid? Well,
should we go to the exercise now, or no?
Not yet.
This is right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does it get paid? Typically, if you have, been in the hospital for 3 days and then you get discharged to a nursing home, that's paid by Medicare for about 100 days. When that runs out, you go private pay. When your money runs out, then you qualify for Medicaid. And not a lot of people have long-term care insurance because it is very expensive. And I suspect that with the boomers getting older, long-term insurance companies are less stable, because we now have a lot of people that paid in premiums that are now filing a lot of claims, so they have less premium support. I suspect that we will see in the future some sort of governmental option for long-term care insurance. And that would be really good news for the elder care industry, because Medicaid patients don't pay as much as other patients. So it really affects the profit margins and the bottom line of elder care facilities. Okay, let's go to the calculator.
All right.
Should I do everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way this set, Blackboard just kind of does this automatically, so it looks all beautiful and everything, but it does. Instead of taking the link outside of Blackboard, you stay within Blackboard. So it's going to click on it. You just come up here, and then you click again, and then it takes you to where you're going to.
Okay, so I wanted to do a little exercise here just to show you cost of care. So let's put in the zip code for USC, 90089. And then click on that. Click on the address.
Okay, hold on. Right here.
Right there.
Sorry, I'm getting there.
Okay. Now put compare location. We got monthly. So we selected monthly.
We have monthly, which is the interesting part. Okay.
And then click on, let's see, do 70461.
That's Dad.
That's where my dad lives. He lives in Slidell, Louisiana. Slidell, and then you click on that. Right. And then scroll down, and it shows, it compares, click on the screen, So it compares the difference in price. Now, obviously, if you live in one of our states with a lower cost of living, then your monthly median costs for in-home care, for assisted living, for nursing home are going to be less.
You see right here across the top, it was $1,500 less a month.
And a lot of that is that the caregivers are making less money.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a pretty big difference in terms of in-home care. Now, in-home care is not cheap. It can cost quite a bit of money, $5,000-6,000 a month, but that's less than a nursing home, because if we look down, you're probably not going to be able to afford a private room in a nursing home in LA for very long. But look at the difference in nursing home costs. It's $10,000, almost $11,000 in LA for a private room. It's $6,000 in Slidell, Louisiana. So that's because of real estate costs. It's because of salary and wage costs. It's because of workers' comp costs. It's a lot of different things go into this. And these facilities are operating on, like I said, kind of small profit margins. So if you can, get old in a cheaper place or have a lot of money to pay for your benefits. So that is everything I think I need to cover this week. If you have questions, I did send out an email with a little bit of a review for the midterm too. It does cover everything through the end of the semester. So even though we're opening the exam early, we want you to go ahead and take your quiz and do your discussion and study that for the midterm, because that will be on it from week 14.
And play with this website that we showed you right here. It's it's kind of fun to put in different zip codes, and depending on where you live, your grandparents live, and look at the different costs. It's it's kind of interesting, and so we encourage you to play around with it. That's why it's interactive.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so I guess we're
All right,
done.
that's everything. Thank you, guys.
I guess we have to say goodbye. So it's been a wonderful semester, and like Joey said, please stop by and come see us if you're around, and feel free to Zoom us anytime. We're always here.
All righty.
All righty,
Thanks, guys.
guys.
Good luck.
You guys take care. Fight on, as I always say. All right, fight on.